War, as an enduring human phenomenon, has generated a profound and diverse philosophical discourse. This discourse oscillates between two principal schools of thought, pacifism and just war theory. Each represents a distinct ethical approach to the question of war, grounded in different philosophical traditions and moral principles. Pacifism is a broad and multifaceted ideology that fundamentally opposes war and violence. Rooted in the belief that war is inherently immoral, pacifism advocates for non-violence and peaceful resolution of conflicts. The foundations of pacifism can be traced back to various religious and philosophical traditions. Early Christian teachings, exemplified by the Sermon on the Mount, emphasize turning the other cheek and loving one's enemies. Similarly, the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. underscore the power and efficacy of nonviolent resistance. Philosophically, pacifism can be categorized into absolute and contingent forms. Absolute pacifism maintains that all forms of violence and war are unjustifiable, regardless of the circumstances. This view is often grounded in a deontological ethical framework, which posits that certain actions are intrinsically wrong. For absolute pacifists, the taking of human life is a moral transgression that cannot be justified by any outcome, however beneficial it might seem. This stance is often criticized for its perceived impracticality, as it appears to ignore the complexities of real-world scenarios where violence might be employed to prevent greater harm. Contingent pacifism, on the other hand, allows for the possibility that some forms of violence might be justifiable under certain conditions. This view is more aligned with consequentialist ethics, which evaluates the morality of actions based on their outcomes. Contingent pacifists argue that while war is generally undesirable, there might be exceptional situations where engaging in war is the lesser of two evils. However, even within this framework, the threshold for justifying war is set extraordinarily high, and the emphasis remains on exhausting all possible non-violent alternatives before resorting to violence. The principles of pacifism challenge the notion of war as a legitimate means of conflict resolution. Pacifists argue that the harms caused by war, loss of life, psychological trauma, economic devastation, and the perpetuation of hatred and enmity far outweigh any potential benefits. They advocate for diplomacy, dialogue, and other peaceful means to address disputes. In the modern era, this perspective is bolstered by the recognition of the catastrophic potential of nuclear and other weapons of mass destruction, which amplify the destructive capacity of war to unprecedented levels. In contrast, just war theory offers a framework that seeks to reconcile the moral imperatives of justice with the practical realities of war. Originating from classical and medieval philosophical traditions, just war theory provides criteria for determining when it is morally permissible to engage in war and how war should be conducted. The theory is traditionally divided into two main components: jus ad bellum, justice of war, and jus in bello, justice in war. Jus ad bellum sets the conditions under which it is justifiable to go to war. These conditions typically include just cause, legitimate authority, right intention, last resort, probability of success, and proportionality. Just cause requires that war can only be waged for reasons that are morally sound, such as self-defense or protecting innocent lives. Legitimate authority stipulates that only duly constituted authorities have the right to declare war. Right intention emphasizes that the motives behind the war must be just, focusing on the pursuit of peace and justice rather than selfish or malicious aims. The principle of last resort underscores the necessity of exhausting all peaceful alternatives before resorting to war. This aligns with the pacifist emphasis on prioritizing non-violent solutions. Probability of success considers whether the war has a reasonable chance of achieving its objectives, as futile wars lead to unnecessary suffering. Proportionality, a crucial concept in just war theory, requires that the anticipated benefits of the war must outweigh the expected harms. This principle serves as a moral check on the scale and intensity of warfare, ensuring that the response to aggression is measured and appropriate. Jus in bello, on the other hand, addresses the ethical conduct of war once it has begun. The main principles here are discrimination and proportionality. Discrimination requires that combatants distinguish between legitimate military targets and non-combatants, ensuring that the latter are not intentionally targeted. This principle seeks to minimize civilian casualties and uphold the moral distinction between soldiers and civilians. Proportionality in jus in bello demands that the force used in war be commensurate with the military objectives sought, avoiding unnecessary destruction and suffering. Just war theory, while providing a robust ethical framework, is not without its critiques. Critics argue that the theory can be co-opted to justify almost any war, given the right rhetoric and framing. The criteria for just war can be interpreted subjectively, allowing states to rationalize their aggressive actions under the guise of justice. Moreover, the theory's emphasis on legitimate authority has been challenged in an era where non-state actors and insurgent groups play a significant role in conflicts. The concept of legitimate authority becomes problematic when considering wars of national liberation or resistance against oppressive regimes. Additionally, the rapid advancement of military technology poses new ethical dilemmas that just war theory must address. The use of drones, cyber warfare, and other forms of remote and automated combat complicates the application of traditional principles such as discrimination and proportionality. These technologies blur the lines between combatants and non-combatants, challenge the notion of accountability, and raise questions about the ethical implications of distancing soldiers from the battlefield. Despite these critiques, just war theory remains a significant and influential framework in both philosophical and practical discussions about war. It offers a middle ground between the absolutism of pacifism and the unrestrained use of force, striving to balance moral imperatives with the harsh realities of international relations. In the contemporary global landscape, the interplay between pacifism and just war theory continues to shape debates on war and peace. The pacifist perspective serves as a moral conscience, constantly reminding humanity of the profound costs of war and the imperative to seek peaceful solutions. The principles of nonviolence and dialogue resonate in various international movements advocating for disarmament, conflict resolution, and social justice. The rise of global institutions and norms aimed at preventing and resolving conflicts, such as the United Nations and international humanitarian law, reflects the influence of pacifist ideals. Meanwhile, just war theory remains a vital tool for policymakers, military leaders, and ethicists grappling with the complex realities of contemporary conflicts. The theory provides a structured approach to evaluating the morality of war, offering guidelines that can help mitigate the horrors of warfare and protect innocent lives. In an era marked by asymmetric warfare, terrorism, and humanitarian interventions, just war theory offers a framework for navigating the ethical complexities of modern conflict. Ultimately, the philosophy of war, encompassing both pacifism and just war theory, underscores the enduring tension between the ideals of peace and the realities of conflict. This tension reflects a fundamental aspect of the human condition, the struggle to reconcile our highest moral aspirations with the often harsh and violent nature of the world. As long as war remains a possibility, the philosophical exploration of its ethical dimensions will continue to be a vital and necessary endeavor, guiding humanity in its quest for a more just and peaceful world.